The alarm buzzed at 6 a.m., but Jack was already awake. He usually was. Years of firefighting had trained him to sleep light, and years of single fatherhood had made rest more of a luxury than a necessity. He sat at the edge of the bed, running, a hand over his unshaven face, eyes lingering on the photo frame, sitting on the nightstand. A woman's smiling face beamed back at him. Emily, her eyes held that playful mischief he used to fall in love with again every time she laughed. She'd been gone for almost 3 years now, but sometimes when the morning light hit just right, or Lily giggled in a certain way, he could almost believe she was still nearby. In the next room, a small thump broke the silence, followed by the unmistakable pitter-patter of tiny feet on hard wood. Jack smiled softly. "And there's my reason for getting up," he murmured to himself. "Daddy." Lily called, bursting into his room, arms already stretched out. Her chestnut curls bounced as she leaped into his lap. Her oversized pajama shirt mealy, old, college tea engulfing her small frame. "Well, good morning, Pumpkin," he said, hugging her tightly. She smelled of lavender, shampoo, and sleep, ready for school. She nodded, yawning into his shoulder. "Can I have pancakes?" "You get pancakes if you brush your teeth first." "Deal," she grinned. "Deal." 15 minutes later, the small kitchen in their modest 2-bedroom home was alive with the sizzle of batter and the scent of maple syrup. The radio played softly in the background, country tunes Jack wasn't particularly fond of, but kept on out of habit. He poured Lily a glass of orange juice, setting it down beside her little pink plate, and placed a single, perfectly golden pancake in the center. "Is Mama watching us?" she asked, almost OFHANDEDLY. Jack paused, spatula mid-air. His heart caught in his chest, as it always did when Lily asked about her mother. "I think she watches us every day," he said carefully, setting down a second pancake and crouching to her eye level. "And if she's watching us right now, she's probably smiling because you asked for pancakes. Those were her favorite too, remember?" Lily nodded solemnly. "She liked strawberries on top." Jack gently reached over and placed a few slices on her pancake. There, just the way she liked it. They ate in comfortable silence, the occasional clink of a fork or the sound of Lily's chewing filling the space. Jack took in the moment. These quiet mornings, no matter how routine, were sacred. He knew how fragile life could be. He'd seen it go up in flames, both metaphorically and literally. After breakfast, they bundled up. The Pacific Northwest wasn't in a rush to let go of winter, and the gray clouds hanging low promised another wet day. Jack zipped up Lily's purple raincoat and slipped her backpack over her shoulders. "Ready, champ?" he asked, tossing on his flannel and grabbing his keys. She nodded. Already halfway out the door. The drive to school was short, just under 10 minutes, but Jack cherished it. They sang to the radio, mostly off-key, and made up silly stories about the people in the other cars. Lily's imagination had no limits, and he loved that about her. At the school gate, Jack knelt down to hug her tightly. Be good, okay? Learn something amazing. I will, she promised, pecking his cheek before running off toward her friends. She turned at the door and waved. He waved back. Back in the truck, he took a deep breath, letting the silence settle in. He often wished he could freeze those little moments, the small rituals that made up the bulk of his life now. The world outside the cab felt bigger, more uncertain by 8:30. He was in his oil-stained coveralls, sleeves rolled up, hands already blackened with grease. He worked at Holman's Garage, a small shop with 2 service bays and a beat-up Coke machine that hadn't worked in years. The pay was enough to keep them afloat, barely. But it was honest work, and that mattered to Jack. He traded his helmet for a wrench after Emily passed. Fighting fires and risking his life no longer felt like the right choice when Lily needed him every single day. Morning. Jack, said Denny, the owner of the shop, tossing him a coffee. Thanks. What's on the docket? Brake job on that Corolla, and something's rattling like hell in the old Suburban. Probably a loose heat shield. Jack nodded and got to work. He liked the quiet focus of fixing things. Like life, broken cars could be understood, troubleshooted, mended. It was one of the few places he felt completely in control. Lunchtime came and went without fanfare. He sat on an upturned crate in the back and ate a turkey sandwich, flipping through a small spiral notebook filled with sketches and budget notes. He was trying to save for a new laptop for Lily. Hers had stopped working last week, and she needed it for school. Between groceries, rent, and gas, the money just wasn't there yet. Still, he wasn't complaining. Others had it worse. He always told himself that. And besides, he had Lillian that made him rich in a way no bank account could dot. It was around 4 o'clock when he got the call from the school secretary. Nothing serious, just a reminder that Lily's permission slip for next week's field trip was overdue. He thanked her, hung up, and wiped the sweat from his brow. Rain began tapping against the roof of the garage. Denny walked over, pulling his jacket on. Storm's picking up out there. You good to lock up tonight? Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it. Tell Lily I said hey. Jack worked a little longer than necessary, mostly to make sure the place was tidy. He took pride in leaving things better than he found them, whether it was a carburetor or his own battered life. He stepped outside and squinted through the rain. The sun was setting behind thick clouds, casting the sky in a dull, cold gray. Climbing into his truck, he sat there for a moment, watching droplets race each other down the windshield. He didn't know why. Maybe it was habit or instinct, but something told him not to rush home just yet. He pulled onto the main road, the tires making that familiar hiss against the wet pavement. As he drove, his thoughts wandered. He remembered the early days after Emily's passing, how paralyzed he felt by the silence, the crushing weight of suddenly having to be everything for Lily: mother, father, comforter, protector. The guilt of smiling again for the first time. The night spent on the bathroom floor, crying so quietly the child in the next room wouldn't hear. But time, as it always does, marched on, and Jack, worn down but not broken, marched with it. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube, learned how to bake birthday cakes without burning the bottom, learned how to be soft when the world told men like him to be hard. And in doing so, he found a deeper kind of strength. He didn't think of himself as a hero. He wasn't. He was just a guy doing what he had to do for a little girl who carried her mother's spark in her eyes. The rain came down in thick sheets, turning the winding mountain road into a slick ribbon of danger. Jack kept both hands on the steering wheel, eyes narrowed against the glare of the headlights reflecting off the wet pavement. Wheezed, trying to keep the windshield clear, but a stubborn fog clung to the corners, like the memories that never quite left him alone. It was the kind of night that made you feel small clouds hanging low and heavy. The smell of pine and earth, thick in the air, everything cloaked in that eerie stillness that comes right before something happens. Jack wasn't thinking about anything in particular, just the warm glow of home waiting for him and Lily's drawing taped to the fridge, the one with all three of them, including Emily, holding hands beneath a rainbow. She'd drawn it for Mommy. In heaven, she'd said. The road ahead twisted through a dense patch of evergreens, branches swaying under the weight of the downpour. Jack flicked on his high beams as the truck's tires hummed steadily over the wet asphalt. He glanced at the clock on the dash. 6:47 p.m. He'd stayed late at the shop again, patching a rusted-out exhaust pipe for a woman who couldn't afford a new one. No charge, of course. Jack never said much about it. He just did what needed doing. He was about to round a bend near Miller's Creek, a stretch of road with no guardrails and a sharp drop to one side, when a flash of silver exploded through the trees to his left. At first, he thought it was lightning, but then came the sound, that horrible sound. Screeching tires, metal twisting, glass shattering, and then silence. Jack slammed the brakes and skidded to a halt, heart hammering. God, what was that? A key. Threw the truck into park, yanked open the door, and bolted out into the rain. The cold hit him like a slap, soaking him instantly as he ran toward the crash. Down a short embankment, nestled between two trees, was what remained of a luxury sedan. The front end was crumpled like a soda can, steam billowing from the hood. One headlight flickered weakly, the other hung by a wire, swinging in the wind. The driver's side door had been flung open, bent on its hinges. Jack didn't think. He never did in these moments. Instinct took over. He slid down the slope, feet barely catching traction, mud splashing up his legs. Rain pelted his face, and the scent of coolant and burnt rubber filled his nose. As he reached the wreck, he could see the drivers slumped forward, hair covering her face, motionless. "Ma'am," he shouted, tapping the side of the door. "Can you hear me?" No response. He peered in. Blood trickled from her temple, and her hands were limp at her sides. The dashboard had buckled from the impact, pinning her knees. Jack cursed under his breath, checking the sky for approaching lights. Nothing. No other cars. No cell signal out here either. It was just him and her. "I'm gonna get you out of here," he muttered. He had to work fast. Gasoline was leaking. From the undercarriage, the unmistakable, sharp tang of it cutting through the rain. He reached in, carefully checking for a pulse at her neck. It was there, thready but steady. Relief flooded through him, but it didn't last. A loud creak came. From the tree overhead, one of the branches cracked and dangling ominously above the wreck. This was a race against time. Using all his strength, Jack gripped the bent frame of the door and pulled. The metal groaned in protest, but gave just enough for him to slip his shoulder in. The dashboard wouldn't budge. He leaned in further, sliding one arm under her shoulders and the other behind her knees. "I'm sorry if this hurts," he whispered. With a grunt, he lifted. The weight of her and the resistance of the twisted metal made it feel like trying to drag a boulder through quicksand, but inch by inch she came free. Her head lolled against his chest, and a soft moan escaped her lips. "That's it," Jack panted, stumbling backward. "Stay with me." As soon as her feet cleared the wreck, he staggered up the embankment, slipping twice before finally making it to the side of the road. He gently laid her down on the grass, checking her pulse again and shielding her face from the rain with his jacket. The flicker of headlights appeared in the distance, finally. Another driver. Jack ran into the road, waving his arms frantically. "Stop. Please. Call 911. The car pulled over, and a young man jumped out, cell phone already in hand. Within minutes, the shrill wail of sirens pierced the night, and paramedics swarmed the scene. They worked quickly, stabilizing the woman, securing her to a stretcher. "You, the one who pulled her out?" a paramedic asked, glancing at Jack. "Yeah. You saved her life. That car could have gone up with that fuel leak." Jack said nothing. His hands were shaking now, adrenaline draining from his system. He looked down at himself, mud-covered, soaked to the bone, blood on his forearms that wasn't his. He realized he still didn't know the woman's name. "Will she be okay?" he asked. The paramedic hesitated. "She's lucky you got her out when you did. We won't know more until we get her to the hospital." They loaded her into the ambulance, red and white lights casting eerie shadows on the wet trees. Jack stood back, watching as the doors closed. She never opened her eyes. "Sir," said a deputy, approaching him with a notebook. "Mind if I get a statement?" Jack shook his head. "Rather not. I didn't do anything special, just saw the crash and helped." The deputy looked at him for a moment, nodded slowly, and said, "All right, you heading back into town?" "Yeah. Well, thank you. She wouldn't have made it without you." Jack nodded, gave a tired half-smile, and turned back toward his truck. He didn't tell them his name, didn't wait for anyone to thank him. That wasn't why he did it. He was already walking back down the dark road, hands shoved in his pockets, when the ambulance peeled away into the night, carrying with it a woman whose life had just been saved by a man with nothing to gain and no reason to stop except that it was simply the right thing to do. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the heart monitor and the soft hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The world seemed muffled, distant, like it was waiting. Clara Hayes blinked against the harsh brightness as she slowly surfaced from the haze of sedation. Her head throbbed, her mouth was dry, and her body felt like it had been dragged through a field of bricks. Which, in a sense, wasn't far from the truth. Her first conscious thought was confusion. She tried to speak, but the words didn't come. Instead, she turned her head slightly and saw the 4 in her arm, the bandages on her hands, and a bouquet of wildflowers sitting on the window sill wrapped in newspaper, like someone had picked them by hand. "Miss Hayes," a soft voice said, and Clara blinked again to focus on the nurse leaning over her. "You're awake." The nurse smiled warmly. "You've been out for a couple of days. You were in a car accident. You're in St. Mary's Hospital, about 20 miles outside of Portland." Clara swallowed. "WHA happened?" "You were pulled from the wreck by a man, no name given. He didn't wait for the ambulance, just made sure you were safe and left. We've been trying to reach your emergency contact, but none were listed. Clara's brows furrowed. She remembered the rain, the forested road, her phone buzzing with notifications she had ignored. She'd been on her way to surprise someone. But who? The memories were slippery. She drifted in and out of consciousness for the next few hours. Time passed in a strange, syrupy way, and when she was finally more alert, the doctor came in with good news. No major spinal injuries, just a concussion, cracked ribs, and a few stitches. Later that evening, the nurse returned, this time with a hesitant look in her eyes. "You've got a visitor." Clara's brow lifted. "Who?" The nurse glanced at her chart, then back to her. "He didn't leave a name, but I think you'll want to see him." Clara's stomach tightened. "Send him in." Moments later, the door creaked open and a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped in, his hat clutched nervously in one hand. He looked like he'd come straight from a mechanic's garage, grease-stained jeans, flannel shirt, hands calloused and strong. His face was worn, lined with years of responsibility. But there was something unmistakably kind about his eyes. Clara stared at him, unsure. Something about him tugged at her memory. He stood just inside the doorway, unsure of what to say. "I heard you were awake," he said. "Didn't mean to bother you. I just wanted to see how you were doing." She tilted her head. "You pulled me out, didn't you?" He nodded, almost reluctantly. "You saved my life." He shifted uncomfortably, like the words didn't quite sit right with him. "I just did what anyone would have." Clara studied him for a moment. The line of his jaw, the shape of his eyes, was all so familiar. A warmth started to spread across her chest, tinged with confusion and a slow-rising ache she didn't understand yet. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. Jack Carter." A moment, neither of them spoke. Then it hit her. The name, the voice, the face. It had been years, almost a decade, since she'd seen him in person. And back then, it was only once, maybe twice, but it was enough. Clara's breath caught in her throat. "Emily," she whispered. Jack looked up, startled. "What did you say?" Her eyes filled with tears. You're Jack. Emily's Jack." His face paled. "You knew Emily?" he asked, voice low. Stunned, Clara nodded slowly. "I'm her sister." He blinked, almost like he didn't believe what he was hearing. But Emily said she hadn't seen her family in years. She never mentioned. Clara looked down. At her lap, "We weren't close anymore. Not after the falling out with our parents. Emily left, cut ties with all of us. I tried to find her later, but by then it was too late." Jack's expression softened into something more complicated some mix of grief, regret, and recognition. He walked over and sat in the chair beside her bed. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have come sooner." Jack was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor. "She died 3 years ago. Brain aneurysm. Just 1 minute she was there, the next." Clara's eyes welled up. "I didn't even know she was gone." Neither of them spoke. The weight of lost years sat heavy between them. "I was coming to find you," Clara finally said, her voice trembling. "I found out about Lily a few months ago. I didn't know. Emily had a daughter. I wanted to meet her, to be there for her. I thought maybe I could fix something." Jack rubbed his jaw, visibly moved. "She's 6 now. Smart, like her mom. Brave, too. I've been doing my best." Clara looked at him, really looked, and saw the fatigue in his eyes. The kind that comes from years of carrying too much alone. But she also saw love, the fierce, quiet kind that doesn't need words. "Why didn't you say anything at the scene?" she asked. "I didn't know who you were. You were unconscious. I don't like being in the spotlight. Didn't think it mattered who I was." Clara shook her head slowly. "It matters." They sat there in silence again, but this time it was softer, less burdened. "I'm not who you probably think I am," she said at last, as if she owed him something. "I have money, a lot of it. Family inheritance, investments, but none of that has ever mattered to me the way family does. I lost Emily before I ever really got her back. But I won't lose Lily, not if I can help it." Jack looked at her with something unreadable in his eyes. "You don't have to do anything. I want to. I didn't save you because I wanted anything. I know that." He stood, hat still in his hand. "You should rest." As he moved toward the door, she stopped him with one word. "Jack." He turned. "Thank you." He nodded once, then disappeared into the hall. Clara sat back against the pillows, heart aching in a way she hadn't felt in years. Her sister was gone, and so much had been left unsaid. But something strange and beautiful had taken root tonight, this unexpected reconnection. Jack didn't come back to the hospital again. Not immediately. He'd left her with only the truth of who he was and the memory of his quiet, rugged strength. Clara had asked the nurses about him, but they didn't know much. One of them said, "Runs a garage just outside of town." The name Jack Carter echoed in her mind like a bell, ringing up memories she'd tried to bury and ones she never got to make. Jack, her sister's husband, her nieces, father, her family. Though he didn't seem to realize it yet, Clara was discharged 3 days after waking up Her bruises were blooming purple and blue, and her ribs still ached with every breath. But she was walking, healing, feeling again. She didn't return to her high-rise condo in downtown Portland. She didn't make any conference calls. Her assistant had already fielded the media inquiries about the accident some CEO found in a ditch on the side of a mountain road, pulled out by an anonymous stranger. Clara didn't correct the story. She didn't need anyone to know who the stranger was, but her. Instead, she watched the locals come and go from the porch swing, sipping lukewarm coffee as if it were the finest roast in the world. She asked around, not directly, but gently, "Is there a Jack Carter in town?" She'd ask as if the name had simply been floating through her mind. The answers came back quickly. Widowed. Wife died young. Single dad to a little girl's sweet. Kid, he works down at Holman's garage. Doesn't say much, but he'll give you the shirt off his back. One rainy morning, Clara found herself standing outside the garage. Her driver, David, looked at her skeptically. "Are you sure you don't want me to go in with you?" She shook her head. "No, this is something I need to do alone." The bell above the door jingled as she walked in. The smell of motor oil and rubber filled the air. A fan buzzed somewhere in the back. Jack was beneath a lifted Subaru, grease smeared on his forearms, a wrench in hand. He saw her boots first, then looked up, eyes widening as he stepped out from beneath the car. "Clara, I hope I'm not intruding." He shook his head slowly, setting the wrench down. "You shouldn't be walking much yet." "I'm stubborn," she replied with a soft smile. "It runs in the family." They stood there in silence again, as they often seemed too tied together by something heavier than words. "I was wondering," she began, "if I could see her." Jack blinked. "Lily." Clara nodded. "If it's not too much." He didn't answer right away, but then he reached for a rag, wiped his hands, and said, "She gets out of school at 3. We could have dinner, if you'd like." "I'd like that very much." That evening, Clara stood on Jack's porch, heart racing like she was about to meet royalty. The house was modest, but it felt lived in, loved. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator door inside. A basket of toys sat by the window. When Lily opened the door, her eyes lit up, though not with recognition, but curiosity. "Hi," she said. Jack stepped behind her. "Lily, this is Clara. She's your aunt, Clara. She was your mommy's sister." Lily looked up at Clara with wide eyes. "Really?" Clara knelt down, her ribs protesting. "Really, I didn't get to meet your mommy again before she passed, and I'm very sorry for that, but I'm so happy to meet you." Lily studied her for a moment, then asked, "Did you like pancakes?" "Too." Clara smiled. "Still do." That seemed to be enough. Lily grabbed her hand and pulled her into the house. Dinner was simple spaghetti and garlic bread, with orange slices on the side. Clara offered to help cook, but Jack waved her off. He wasn't much of a talker in the kitchen, but his actions spoke volumes. The way he tested the noodles twice before deciding they were perfect. The way he set Lily's fork down just right. The way he offered Clara the bigger slice of garlic bread without a word. They sat down together, and Lily, between bites, launched into an enthusiastic retelling of her day. Clara listened, enchanted. "She's incredible," Clara said softly when Lily left the table to grab a book to show her. Jack nodded. "She is." There was a pause. "I've missed so much," Clara murmured. "Emily and I. We were never close. Not really. Our family wasn't good at love." "She never said much," Jack said. "Only that she wanted to raise Lily differently." "She did," Clara said. "You did." They cleared the table together after dinner. Jack washed, Clara dried. The kind of rhythm that felt domestic, natural. When Lily came back, she curled up on the couch with Clara, resting her head on her aunt's shoulder. Jack watched from the kitchen doorway, a knot forming in his throat. It had been years since he'd seen Lily take to someone so quickly. Clara looked up and met his eyes. "I'd like to be in her life, Jack, if you'll let me." He crossed his arms, uneasy. "You're from a different world, Clara." "Maybe, but I can learn this one." "I want to. I'm not here to interfere. I'm not here to take anything away from you. I just want to be part of her life and yours. If that's something you can allow." Jack didn't answer right away. He looked at Lily, giggling at something in her book, completely unaware that two adults were standing in the kitchen, quietly rewriting the next chapter of her life. "She's been asking about her mom a lot lately," he said finally. "I tell her what I can, but maybe she needs more than that." Clara's voice softened. "I can give her stories. I can give her pieces of Emily I remember. Childhood things. The way she danced when no one was looking. The way she used to paint birds on the kitchen walls when she was sad." Jack swallowed hard. "She painted birds for Lily's nursery. I never knew why." "I do," Clara whispered, that night, after Lily fell asleep with her head resting on Clara's arm. Jack walked her to the front porch. "Thank you for letting me in," Clara said, pulling her coat tight. "You didn't leave me much choice." Jack teased gently. Then, after a pause, "It's good. It's been good." She smiled. "This doesn't have to be temporary. I want to stay in this town. Invest in it. Invest in you. In Lily. I can help. He shook his head. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's family. And family helps each other, whether it's a little or a lot. He looked at Hurley, looked at her hand, saw not the millionaire executive or the woman from a high-rise boardroom, but someone real, someone trying to mend something broken. I'm not used to being taken care of, he admitted. She stepped closer. Then maybe it's time someone did. The rain had stopped, and the stars were finally breaking through the clouds. It was quiet, peaceful. I can renovate the shop, she said. Fix the roof, buy better tools. You could run it the way you've always wanted. Jack raised an eyebrow. You've been asking around. I've been listening, she said. And you deserve more than just getting by. He rubbed the back of his neck. And what about you? Clara took a deep breath. I've spent my whole life building things that made money. I want to build something that makes meaning. Jack looked at her for a long time. Then he nodded, just once. Okay, he said. Clara exhaled, her shoulders dropping. Okay,